Alrighty, so I'm here to talk about my favorite personality thing. And throughout my educational experience with psychology, I have found that Eysenck's theory of personality is something of interest to me. So let's get into it. Eysenck's theory of personality, like I said before, one of my favorite topics. Eysenck's theory focused on biological factors as well as biological factors that influence one's temperament. He heavily relied on the genetics that played a role in the development of personal psychology as well as intelligence, and we will talk more about that. His theory focuses mainly on 3 different dimensions of personality. So, Hans Eysenck was a psychologist and spent his professional career in Great Britain, and I thought it was interesting that he was born and raised in Germany, but his hatred towards Hitler and everything going on with the Nazi regime led him to move to England, where he legally became an adult. Eysenck had his PhD in psychology and was known for his influence on intelligence and personality, as I said before. In his career, he published over 700 articles about personality, making him pretty famous in the psychology world. So yes, he was a famous psychologist, yet he was controversial. This was due to because in his time as a psychologist, he looked at a lot of genetics, and he also focused on race and the influences on IQ. And then with his personality theory, it was thought that it was a little too narrow, and we'll get more into that. And then getting into his actual theory, his personality theory, like I said before, he theorized into 3 different dimensions: neuroticism, extroversion, and psychoticism. These 3 dimensions were the primary personality traits that he viewed and related to everyone's everyday life. He still contributed heavily to behavioral genetics and genetics that also influence these 3 primary personality types. And it's also important to add that he believed that everybody kind of fit into this range between each dimension, more on like a scale. So first, we'll get into introversion and extroversion. So, extroversion and introversion relates to our energy and how we spend our energy, how we gain energy, as well as how we respond to others in different environments. So extroverts are those who gain energy around being around others. They like being in crowds of people, they're social people, and they stimulate by being in these kinds of environments. Introverts, they gain energy from their time spent alone, so they do a lot of like reflecting, and a lot of times it's termed as recharging themselves when they're alone. And get more into the next slide. So Eysenck viewed extroversion versus introversion as different types of arousal as well. So extroverted people spend their time around others to gain arousal, while introverted people may believe that being in these large crowds or being around other people is overwhelming, so they tend to spend more time alone. And with excitation and inhibition, they relate more to like the brain activity. Excitation is more alert. So you're around these groups of people, you're in alert. And then inhibition is more of a relaxed form. So getting into the next slide, neuroticism. So neuroticism depends on the level of stability in one's nervous system, or otherwise known as one's emotional stability. So higher levels of neuroticism on the scale are equivalent to low emotional stability, and then lower levels of neuroticism are related to high emotional stability. Alrighty. So individuals with high levels of neuroticism have higher levels of stress, anxiety, depression, fear, anger, etc. And then individuals with low levels of neuroticism are more calm, they're less stressed, they have more positive outlooks on things. In psychoticism, Eysenck based his spectrum of psychoticism off of psychological factors. So individuals who are psychotic or high on the psychoticism scale are often characterized as impulsive and engaging in antisocial behaviors. Eysenck also believed that high levels of psychosis create a threat to the ability to develop mental disorders as well. And then for my last slide, Eysenck's theory is rooted in the psychology of personality, but another interest I have found is this theory in relation to criminal behavior, because that's what I'm also actively studying. So I found it very interesting that Eysenck also compared the different dimensions of personality and their correlations to criminal behaviors. So he kind of believed that detecting one's personality type or kind of where they fall on each range might help determine the likelihood that someone commits a crime or why someone committed the crime. So, for example, if someone ranges highly on the psychoticism scale, they may be more prone to antisocial behaviors, which usually are pretty criminal behaviors. And then this person could also be high on the neuroticism scale. And then being emotionally unstable may lead to antisocial behavior outlets and different criminal behaviors and things like that. So that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you.